Hello folks, Y Guy here again, and I want to welcome you to my home on this beautiful autumn day. And this video is called The Y Guy Asks, Is Hell Important? Well, it must be extremely important, at least to the average Christian. It's important to the average person in the world too, I guess, to a degree, but not so much so as it is to the average Christian, and let me explain. The reason why we have church and we invite people to church, we invite people to, when I'm saying we, I'm including myself in the, as if I was called myself a Christian. We invite our people to our homes for barbecues, the get-togethers. The churches have their potlucks, and they have their services. They have their evangelists, their special speakers, and all of this. And the reason that it's done, the motivation behind it, is to get people saved. Okay? Saved from what? Or saved from where? In the mind of the average Christian, it's being saved from hell. That's why hell is so important to them. The average Christian also knows what that phrase is, WWJD. What would Jesus do is what it stands for. There's bracelets around, all of that kind of stuff. I would like to venture out and change that to WDJD. Rather than what would Jesus do, let's change that to what did Jesus do? Okay? In reference to asking the question, is hell important? Now, in Matthew 15:30 to 33, it says a large crowd came to him, bringing with them those who were lame, crippled, blind, mute, and many others, and they laid them down at his feet, and he healed them. So the crowd marveled. And they saw the mute speaking, the crippled restored, and the lame walking, and the blind seeing, and they glorified the God of Israel. And Jesus called his disciples to him, and he said, I feel compassion for these people, because they have remained with me now for 3 days, and have nothing to eat, and I do not want to send them away hungry, for they might faint on the way. Nowhere, anywhere in this chapter does it mention hell. Does Jesus mention hell? Does the disciples mention hell? And it seems to be the WDJD, what did Jesus do? It seemed that he had a perfect opportunity, number one, to tell them about hell, but instead it seemed that the only thing on Jesus's mind was to heal the mute, to restore the crippled, the lame, the blind, to make sure they were fed, that they weren't hungry. That's what Jesus did. It's not, you get the point. Okay, that's what Jesus did. That's just one of many examples. I want to point out a couple more. Let me backtrack just a little bit. I have a friend who happens to be a preacher. I know. Shame on me, right? He would say, at one time he said to me at his dinner table, he said, you know, Jesus spoke of hell more than anyone else in the whole Bible. And before I knew that what he was saying was completely false, because I've heard that from many people, you know, since then, before I did my own research, before I just blindly agreed or believed this supposed man of God, and before I did my research, like I already said, Jesus did not ever speak of hell, ever. Those words never came out of his mouth. And I've said in many videos that Jesus was a Jew. Jews didn't believe in hell. He wouldn't teach on something he didn't believe in. Okay, it's not part of that religion, okay, the Hebrew religion. And number one. And number two, what he spoke about more than anyone else was a physical place, not a spiritual one, a physical place called Gehenna. Okay, and all it was a dumping ground for bodies and trash and bodily refuse. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. So, anyhow, Jesus never did speak of hell, ever. But let's continue on what Jesus, WDJD, what Jesus actually did do. Okay, in Mark 5:21-24, when Jesus had crossed over again in the boat to the other side, a large crowd gathered around him, and so he stayed by the seashore. One of the synagogue officials named Jairus came up, and on seeing him, fell at his feet and implored him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Please come and lay your hands on her so that she might get well." And he went off with him. What was Jesus concerned about when he showed up on the other side? Was he concerned about saving these people from hell? Was this important to Jesus? No. The only thing important to Jesus was laying hands on this little girl and listening to the broken heart of the dad, of the father. One couple last ones. Mark 6:54-56. When they got out of the boat, immediately the people recognized him and ran about the whole country and began to carry here and there on their pallets those who were sick, to the place that they heard he was. Wherever he entered villages or cities or the countryside, that they were laying the sick in the marketplaces and imploring him that they might touch the fringe of his cloak, and as many as touched it were being cured. Throughout all of these places he went, did he ever mention hell and saving them from him? What did Jesus do? He healed them. If hell is so important, all right, then why did it seem, it's a fact, that all he cared about was the here and now, not some mystic other world, after death place. He was concerned about if they were hungry, if they were sick, I'll continue, Matthew 9:35. Jesus was going through all the cities and villages, teaching their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every kind of disease and every kind of sickness. Now get this, seeing the people. I'm going to quote a verse out of the NCT Bible, the New Christian Translation. Seeing the people, he was worried about what would happen to them after they died, because they were living in sin. He was worried that they were going to die and end up in eternal hell. So that's what it says in their Bible. But in the Bible it says, seeing the people, he felt compassion for them because they were distressed and dispirited like sheep without a shepherd. And one last verse I want to share. Mark 8:17-18. And Jesus, aware of this, in context about people being hungry, again, the here and now. Why do you discuss the fact that you have no bread? Do you not yet see or understand? Do you have a hardened heart? I'm asking some of my viewers, do you have a hardened heart? Having eyes you do not see, and having ears you do not hear? Most people who believe in a torturous hell have hardened their hearts to that. They seem to be unwilling to investigate other possibilities. As I've said on a previous video, you think that's all God has at his disposal? The creator of all that exists, the heavens and the earth and everything that exists, that is all that he has at his fingertips, at his disposal, is this idiotic pagan place called hell in order to reconcile people, which that's an oxymoron, in order to punish or not. That's all that he has? That's it? His imagination isn't any greater than that. Because people have hardened their hearts to their belief in hell. Their hearts are hardened because they feel people deserve it and that they don't, for some odd reason. It's called brainwashing. Having eyes you do not see. I've in videos, and many other people like me have pointed out hundreds of verses that say that God is going to save all mankind, period, with no conditions attached to it. Only if you believe, only if you repent, only if you confess, only. That's never said in any of those verses. God is going to reconcile all of his creation, period. But yet, you have eyes and you do not see. You do not see all those verses. Why? Because your heart is hardened. And you having ears you do not hear, having ears you do not hear. I can't say much more about that. So I'm going to continue to proclaim what Jesus did. WDJD. What did Jesus do? He did everything that was necessary to reconcile all of creation. Thank you for viewing.